Dragon Age Inquisition. Now in this video I'm gonna give you guys what I think is the best way to spend your ability points as a mage in the game Dragon Age Inquisition. Now quickly before we dive into this video, I'm gonna be first talking about the 4 basic mage abilities, which are Spirit, Storm, Inferno, and Winter. And then I'm gonna go over the Rift Mage, because that is the specialization that I decided to be. Now anyways, let's go ahead and get started. First off, the Spirit. This is where you should spend your very first ability point in the beginning of the game. The Barrier ability. This is one of the most useful things and probably the most useful spell that I've used still as a mage. Now the Barrier ability gives you, of course, a barrier, which will protect you from incoming damage. Now as a mage, you're very vulnerable, so this barrier is gonna help you and as well as your team, because you can cast it on you. Basically the area that's highlighted. Those guys that are in there will get a barrier, which has saved my life so many times. So yeah, definitely go for that. Now let's move on to the Storm, or the Electricity. First off, you want to go for Chain Lightning plus the upgrade. This ability is basically a lightning strike. If there are multiple targets, then the lightning will bounce between the enemies, dealing a lot of damage. When you use the spell against just one enemy, it's not going to be that effective, so keep that in mind. Now further down the skill tree, I first wanted to stand still by some of the passive abilities. First one is Stormbringer, which is very useful, and as you can see it right here, it's gonna hit random targets sometimes. I mean, how helpful is that? That is awesome. Second passive ability is Gathering Storm, which reduces the cooldown of your abilities when you do your basic attack. Now that is, I think, one of the most useful passive abilities. Now the final ability in the Storm tree is going to be Static Gauge. Now this combined with Chain Lightning, that is gonna wreck your enemies. Now what this spell does is it casts some sort of a lightning thingy, and in that area people can't get out. If enemies try to get out, they will get electrified. If you use the upgrade on this one, every time that you do damage to the enemy that is in that cage, the cage itself will do extra damage to that enemy. So I definitely recommend you to get the upgraded version of this one. Now the next skill tree is going to be Winter, and I only need one ability for Winter, which is the Fade Stab plus its upgrade. Now what this ability allows you to do is it basically you run really fast, and if you get the upgrade, if you run through an enemy, you also do frost damage. Now I use this ability a lot if enemies try to get close to me. I use this ability to run away, or I use it as an attacking ability. So I definitely recommend this one. This is a very handy ability to have, and it's also the very first in the Winter tree. So yeah, as of the other ones in the Winter tree, I wouldn't really recommend it. I've tried all of them. I don't think they're quite that good. So I just keep it with the Fade Stab. Now moving on to the Inferno Tree, the first skill that you want to pick is the Flash Fire skill. Now this is basically a fireball that you send to your enemies. It also leaves your enemies burning, and if you choose the upgrade, the burning damage will increase. Now the upgrade for this one isn't really necessary, but if you have the extra ability points, then I recommend you spend it on that one. Now moving now further in the Inferno tree, the last ability that you want to pick is the Fire Mine. Now this is a very powerful ability. It basically is a fire glyph. Now I'm not really fond of using glyphs, but this one is going to be very powerful. It does 1600% damage of your staff damage, which is a whole lot. So if you cast this spell, you will basically summon a glyph on the ground, which will take a couple of seconds to activate. So you have to keep in mind when using that, you might need to practice a bit so you don't miss your target. But if you got this under control, then you are gonna deal some serious damage. Also, if you spend the ability points on the upgrade, it will launch enemies into the air, which will also knock them down, and that is also something that is very funny to see as well as effective. Now moving on to the Rift specialization, the first thing that you want to pick is the Stone Fist plus the upgrade. Now what this does is basically it sends a Stone Fist to the enemy, which deals great damage to one enemy, which if you pick the upgrade, it will explode and knock the enemy on the ground. Now moving on further in the Rift Tree, I think there's only one more that you really need to pick, which is the Firestorm ability, which also is the ability that only uses focus. So this skill doesn't require mana. All that you need is your full focus bar and you'll be good to go. Now if you cast this spell, it's gonna be very devastating. You're basically gonna summon a meteorite strike. Meteorites will fall from the sky, dealing a lot of damage to the enemies that are surrounding that area. Now I definitely think that this is one of the most cool looking spells that you can pick as a mage. Now also be careful because you can't use this spell too often. You need to wait till your focus bar is completely full again, which might take some time, so be careful when you use it. Use it in the good situation. Now in my opinion, that is all you need to pick in the Rift category. You don't really need the final spell in the tree because the Static Cage ability in the Storm Tree does basically the same thing and even better. Now in total you need to be level 18 to unlock all of the spells that I talked about in this video. Now I know that this video was a little bit different than my normal videos, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed it and learned something as the Inquisitor. But if you enjoyed the video, then don't hesitate to hit the like button as it really does help me out a lot. But anyways, this was Per, and I thank you all for watching.